Thank you for this chance to talk about the role of agricultural technology at this virtual conference on water. Our focus today is on the Americas, and it was, after all, the famous North American Benjamin Franklin who said that when the well is dry, we know the worth of water. If we hear nothing else from this conference, it is that we are beginning to fully appreciate the rising worth of our very finite supply of water. Nowhere is the value more obvious than in agriculture. In Mexico, for example, aquifers that farmers rely on are being drawn down 20% faster than they can be replenished. In the Midwest of the United States, the Ogallala Aquifer, that vast reservoir that sustains the world's breadbasket, is being depleted by man faster than it can be replenished by nature. In California's Central Valley, farmers are in a continuous struggle to catch as much water as possible before it moves from the Sierras to the sea. With human population rising against a constant supply of water, we clearly cannot continue with business as usual. We need a game changer if we are to achieve sustainability in water. You've heard that 70% of fresh water is used by agriculture. In my industry, as in yours, that game changer can only come from innovation, technology, and best practices. When you think of technology in water and agriculture, you might think first of reservoirs and other engineering solutions. Perhaps the greatest game changer of all, however, is adapting agricultural practices and even the physiology of plants themselves, so we can grow more food with less water. If we can do that, we can meet the nutritional needs of a growing world in a way that is truly sustainable. We can reap the same kinds of economies of scale that those in other technology-intensive industries do every day. Think of this approach with growing more food with less water as agriculture's attempt to emulate the kind of productivity gains we've seen in computer, electronics, the internet, and telecom. To reap these kinds of growing efficiencies, however, we have to take an integrative approach. We must balance the resource needs of the environment, the income needs of the farmer, and the growing demands of the consumer. Often we find we can serve all needs with the same technology. That may sound like a tall order until you consider the power of the integrative approach in technological terms. Let me explain. Traditional agriculture technologies have been good at performing one task: controlling an insect, controlling a weed, and stretching water resources. It is no longer good enough to see agricultural technology, however, in terms of one blockbuster product after another. We now construct technologies to work in tandem. We have moved from a component-based approach to a systems approach that can be likened to human medicine, where physicians now understand that new therapies must support overall systemic health, not just one aspect of it. In a similar way, agricultural technology must look beyond one problem. It must support the overall sustainability of agriculture, in which the environmental and economic sum is synergistically greater than the technological parts. This is especially true when it comes to managing water resources. Such solutions have to be flexible, and they must be as environmentally efficient as they are economically productive. After all, without environmental benefits, no new technology can be considered sustainable. And without economic benefits for the farmer, no technology, no matter how commendable for the environment, will be adopted on a wide-scale basis. So Syngenta squares this circle. We bring plant potential to life by improving the actual physiology of the plant. If you think about water shortages, the engineering approach is somewhat like those who respond to short supplies of energy by going to the front end of the problem, seeking to extract more energy-rich resources from the earth. Our approach is more like those who are working the back end of the problem, seeking greater energy efficiency with cars that use less fuel and appliances that use less energy. The difference being, in this case, plants that use less water. How can this be done? We first have to take into account the many mechanisms by which drought alters a plant's development. Not surprisingly, drought affects plant health across the board. It affects a plant's ability to absorb soluble nutrients. It compromises cell expansion and division and transpiration and photosynthesis. Above all, it harms the part of the plant, the kernel, the bulb, the fruit, or the grain that becomes our food. The timing of water stress is also a key. Just as hunger at a young age can stunt human potential, so too can water stress at differing stages of a plant's development, reduce its plant size, leaf size, and food yield. Drought also alters plant health in many other ways, from its root growth to its gene expression, metabolism, and physiology. In short, drought conditions represent not just one problem, but a whole combination of negative consequences. Understanding this aspect of plant physiology is key, because it allows us to direct many different technologies toward the single goal of growing more food with less water. One set of technologies we bring to bear is weed control. Weeds soak up a lot of water. They use 3 times more water than corn, for instance, and they force farmers to waste vast amounts of water as they try to ensure that moisture is absorbed by the crops. So we are changing that equation with gentle herbicides that target weeds, without impacting the food crop and the greater environment. Another technology involves the use of fungicides, like Syngenta's new product, Quilt. A plant struggling against a fungus infection is somewhat like an athlete training for the Olympics while fighting a cold. By clearing fungi from cereals, corn, rice, and grasses, Quilt reduces stress on plants so they use water more efficiently. The third technology is an emerging product we call Invensa, which has been developed for row crops like corn, soybeans, cotton, wheat, and rice. Plants, like people, respond to stress in all sorts of negative, counterproductive ways. They wilt, roll, or discard their leaves. They lose chlorophyll and become less efficient at photosynthesis and pollination. They drop their flowers, fruits, and seeds. Invensa delays that stress reaction and so enables plants to maintain their proper healthy functions longer, thus improving yield during periods of high temperature, drought, and other stresses. A fourth technology being developed is AgriSure Artesian, the first water-optimized technology for corn hybrids. With the use of gene mapping, we identified and bred for multiple genes that work together in different ways for moisture stress protection. Here's how it works. One gene helps plants develop a more robust system. 2 other genes maintain regulation of tissue identity in shoot and floral growing points. Yet another efficiently regulates cell death. When you combine all these genes through breeding, you have a water-optimized hybrid that can increase yields of corn by at least 15% under moisture stress. All of these technologies can be used in combination, depending on the farmer's needs. Farmers need a flexible response because they not only have to deal with global climate change, they also have to deal with the vagaries of their local microclimate. On-site weather stations and soil moisture probes, as well as new technologies that measure vigor, greening, photosynthesis, and more, can help farmers determine which combination of technologies they need to bring to bear. Farmers, after all, need every tool we can give them. In agriculture, it is the farmer who takes almost all the risk. It is the farmer whose credit and very home are often on the line. It is the farmer who has to find technologies that ensure against wild swings in price and precipitation and climate change. How do we help the farmer manage risk? First, as I've said, we provide farmers these tools to manage how their crops respond to variable conditions. Second, we impart knowledge about how to select and combine these technologies with a range of sensors to base decisions on precise scientific data about their field. These tools are not just effective for highly developed farming regions, they can also work wonders for farmers in developing nations. The developing world, after all, has the greatest stake in the dissemination of technologies that can improve yields with less water, making a huge difference in farm incomes among the world's poorest. The developing world can certainly benefit from weed control technologies that can reduce stoop labor. And the environment is also benefiting from technologies that reduce soil loss and greenhouse gas emissions. Tillage is a root cause of agricultural land degradation, posing a threat to the environment, food security, and farm incomes. In the United States, EPA classifies sediment runoff as the #1 pollutant of water in North America. Tillage can promote the runoff of sediment, fertilizers, and pesticides into rivers, lakes, and oceans. Most plowing, of course, is done to control weeds. Safe and effective herbicides, however, can make that plowing unnecessary. That leaves crop residues on the soil surface, increasing water infiltration and limiting runoff. The residues also promote water conservation by reducing evaporation. In instances where water availability limits crop production, greater water conservation can mean higher yielding crops or new capabilities to grow alternative crops. NoTill also creates habitats for birds that nest on the ground. Researchers in Iowa, for example, found that 12 bird species nested in no-till fields, compared to only 3 in tilled fields. No-till fields require 50 to 80% less fuel to manage and 50% less labor. Most impressive of all, no-till sequesters millions of tons of carbon in the soil. It is one of the single most dramatic steps we can take to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. Today, some 70% of cropland in Argentina is no-till. The United States is also a leader in the no-till revolution. As farmers in the U.S. increasingly put away their plows, soil is conserved. According to the USDA's National Resources Inventory data, soil erosion from water and wind on U.S. cropland decreased 43% between 1982 and 2003. Much of these environmental savings coming from no-till or conservation tillage. Agriculture, no less than any other industry, is being reshaped in these ways by technology. Up until now, farmers have watered crops somewhat like the timers of an automatic lawn sprinkler system have watered lawns, whether water was needed or not. Farmers everywhere will soon be able to count on precision agriculture, which uses telemetry, georeference, and sensor technology that tells the system to water only when water is needed. In these ways, we take even more of the guesswork out of the business of farming. In agriculture, as in all the industries here that look to use water more wisely, the drive toward higher technologies is driving us toward the service business of instilling knowledge. In our case, we work closely with retailers, farmer groups, and governmental agricultural agencies to equip the farm sector with the ability to make agile use of these technologies, just as you work to push information through consumer groups and trade associations. As we move ahead, we will rely ever more on industries represented at this conference, from technologies that support precision farming to GPS, sensors, internet, and wireless services and applications. We are using technology to empower users, in our case, farmers, to make smart decisions on the ground every day. I know that each of you, in your own ways, is doing the same. With integrated approaches, we can grow more food from less water and make more technological products that require less water, less energy, and have less impact on our earth. Thank you.